there. Can you hear me now? I never had it plugged into my laptop. Yes! Rejoice, comrades! Jim Speak is here. Hi, Jim. That might help. Christ, I'm a fucking idiot. Hello, how are you? I am doing well. Oh, dear God. Over here. Over here. Ah, crud. Give me a moment. Add. Where is it? Screen capture? Add. Add source. Yes. This one. Done. You cannot see my face. We are oh God. Oh, for fuck's sake. No, no, no. My chat. My Discord. The hell was that? Yes, far right wankery. That's weird. I will need to move my chat over. Yes, light mode. Because light mode is good. We are talking about this one from The Guardian. Shall we get into it? Or will we wait for more people? I'm fine just chatting with you. In fact, you know what? While we're waiting for people to arrive, let's get the story up. Get rid of that. Where's my screen capture? Delete the screen capture for a second. Bring it back. Do. Add source. This one. Done. There's the story. Move over. There we go. Nope. 12 quid a month. I might pay you £4 a month when I can afford a Guardian, but until then, free version. Let's bring this down. Oh, it's up there. See? I don't even know the price of a Guardian, the actual paper now. This is what is classed as a broadsheet, by the way, everyone. Apparently, this is the newspaper for the left. No, it ain't. That's the Canary. Is it fucking nearly £2? What the hell? I used to read The Guardian fucking years ago, and when I paid for it was like £1.10 or something? 90p maybe? But we're talking over 20 years now. Yeah. Inflation, isn't it fun? And see, the right-wing ones, they're probably... How much is like the... Oh, right, you go back there. So I'm not getting myself all caught up in cables. Oh! I'll introduce you to the Stream Guardians. Look at the Stream Guardians. They have horns. And unfortunately they taste delicious. But they do look gorgeous. I love my healing coos. Healing coos! Yes, they are a healing coo. Obviously, because they're from the islands. The breed itself comes from the Middle East, or Western Asia if you want to put it that way. Then we bred them to be hairy ginger motherfuckers. Oh god no, they're fucking amazing. Every time I go up to see my family, there's a field that we pass just about five miles, maybe 10 miles north of Stirling. There's a big fuck off roundabout which you can go and take like to Bridge of Allen and it's Stirling and things like that. And about 5 to 10 miles north of that roundabout, there's a field with about 15 or 20 healing coos in it. And I look at them, you will be a burger soon. I don't know how, they've been there forever. So this farmer's well established with their healing coos in Perthshire. Oh, the red heifer. Oh, is it the red heifer? I never fucking realised that. I should have. Thank you, Jim. You have educated me tonight. Much appreciated. Tonight's poison of choice, Stowford Press. Tesco seems to be having a surplus of it. I've got a self-made footrest of an empty container box and 4 pillows. There's quite there is quite that I've seen the red heifer before, the breed itself, and they do look kind of the structure different types of hair and stuff on them, but the structure of them and the type of it's shorter horns. Some healing coos have they'd be classed as longhorn in the States essentially. I do see some similarities between the breeds. Come back. Sig escaping. Look at my mouse mat. I love my super hubby. He bought it for me. It was £7. And it has a healing coo on it. Right, shall we? Correct. Well, they're very well looked after. Don't get me wrong, they probably realise that they're going to get slaughtered at some point. Well, if they had the intelligence, they'd probably realise it. Pigs realise it. They've got problem solving intelligence, which proves difficult. And they're very stubborn bastards. They're very human in a lot of aspects. Shall we? Oh, feel free to clip me, Jim. Honestly, I could do with the clips. Palestine Action ban coupled with Online Safety Act a threat to public debate. No shit. Rights bodies say new law and proscription of Direct Action Group create a risk of censorship of Gaza-related content. An end of the wedge. Feel free to say anything in the chat and we can discuss it while we're reading this absolute fucking dystopian shit. The Online Safety Act, together with the proscription of Palestine Action, could result in platforms censoring Palestinian-related content. Human rights organisations have warned. Yes, that is correct. Open rights group Index on Censorship and others have written to Ofcom calling on it to provide clear guidance to platforms on distinguishing lawful expression from content deemed to be in support of terrorism. Palestine Action are not terrorists. Just saying. They say failure to act by the regulator risks misidentification. It's deliberate. That's how the legislation's been written. Trust me, I went and checked on Hansard's. And because this is legislation, any of us can go and check it if we want to. I would encourage you not to unless you're really fucking clued in on how to read political and legalese. I do it because I can understand it. And I can decode it for everyone. In certain aspects, I'm not good with the economic side of shit. But this literal attack on what we can speak about. Yes, I know exactly what they mean in the legislation. Including through algorithms. Hello, I live on the internet. So do millions of other people. Of support for Palestine as support for Palestine Action, which on the 5th of July became the first direct action protest group to be banned under UK anti-terrorism laws. It also runs the risk of misidentifying objections to Palestine Action's proscription as unlawful support for the group, the signatories claim. Sarah Chitseko, a pre-crime programme manager at Open Rights Group, said crucial public debate about Gaza is being threatened by vague, overly broad laws. Again, that is the point of the legislation. They leave it so vague that lots of platforms, especially social media ones, will just go bonk you from orbit so they don't get sued or dealt with by the government of whatever fucking country. Funny that. Dissent not allowed. Are we living under 1984? Definitely feels like it. Possibly. There's also a real danger that people will start self-censoring. Try and get me to shut the fuck up then. Bonk me for Morbit, I don't care. If you want to silence me, I'll just shout louder. Worried they might be breaking the law just by sharing or liking posts related to Palestine and non-violent direct action. They've already arrested people. When are they going to realise that you can't actually police the internet like this? It's not going to fucking work. VPNs exist. The dark web exists. So I'm trying not to go into the dark web because that is a hive of villainy, scum and fucking fascists. I don't want to do that. I don't want to expose myself to that fucking BS. This is a serious attack on freedom of expression. Correct. And the right to protest in the UK. We need to ensure that people can share content about Palestine online with being afraid that they will be characterised as supportive of terrorism. We are not. Thank you. The organisation's concerns are exacerbated by Ofcom's advice that platforms can avoid worrying about their duties under the Online Safety Act if they ensure they are more censorious than the Act requires. So literally putting it on putting the onus onto the platforms, and lots of us will literally just lose their livelihoods on the internet, myself included. I use the money that I get from Twitch because I'm not a partner yet over them. Yes. I might show that video again to let you know all about them. This approach risks encouraging automated moderation that disproportionately affects political speech. Yes. Particularly from marginalised communities. Scottish disabled Marxist here. including Palestinian voices, disproportionately affected, in my opinion, more than I am. Unlike in the EU, there is no independent mechanism for people in the UK to challenge content they feel has been wrongly taken down. The signatories want platforms. The letter has also been sent to Meta, Alphabet, X and ByteDance. Facebook, Google, which means YouTube, Twitter, fuck off Elon, and ByteDance, TikTok, to commit an independent dispute mechanism if evidence emerges of lawful speech being suppressed. No, they're going to take the easiest route out and just go bonk, and people will lose their platform. That's what they're going to fucking do. They don't want to spend any extra money on dealing with this. They'll just ban us. They'll just literally kick us off the platform. That is the easier, cheaper method for them to do. They don't destroy their bottom line in any sort of fashion. So they'll just fucking boot us off. Thank you. Brilliant. Losing our free speech. Good thing I've got drink to get through this story. A letter also signed by Electronic Frontier Foundation in the US and organisations from 8 European countries. Why are you not detailing them? As well as experts and academics, says, we are concerned that the proscription of Palestine action may result in an escalation of platforms removing content. Using algorithms to hide Palestine solidarity posts and leave individuals and those reporting on events vulnerable to surveillance or even criminalisation for simply sharing or liking content that references non-violent direct action. We are also concerned about what platforms understand by their legal duties regarding expressions for support for Palestine action. Excuse me. The letter comes a week after the OSA's age gating for adult material came into effect, prompting fears about access to Palestine-related content. For example, Reddit users in the UK have to verify their age to access subreddit Israel Exposed. Working as intended, methinks. Are you Ella Jakubowski? Sorry, Ella, if I've pronounced your surname wrong. The head of policy, the EDRI in Brussels, said there would inevitably be suppression of critical voices, journalism and social movements around the world. The problem is worsened by automated content moderation systems. I've been fiddling with it because a lot of people have said it's a little bit loud, so I'll put the volume down a bit on when anyone posts in the chat. I can see them, they're all coming up, I assume. And I changed my moderation levels as well because Streamlabs and Nightbot have been overly zealous. So hopefully I've got the moderation to the perfect level now. Oh, no problem, Jim. Okay, I'm sorry. Ella Jakubowski, the head of policy EDRI in Brussels, said there would inevitably be suppression of critical voices, journalism and social movements around the world. The problem is worsened by automated content moderation systems, algorithm, well known for removing content from Palestinian creators in support of Black Lives Matter about LGBTQI+ issues and more. It's already been happening, has been happening for fucking years. It is very likely that in trying to comply with these requirements, platforms would unjustly remove content from people in the EU and other regions. She said that would contravene laws such as the EU Digital Services Act, designed to strike a balance between keeping people safe online and freedom of expression. An Ofcom spokesperson said, "We have provided detailed guidance to platforms about how to identify the particular types of illegal and harmful material prohibited or restricted by the Act." How can you do that? You've made it too fucking vague. Including how to determine whether content may have been posted by a prescribed organisation. Thank you so much, Jim. I will get to it in a second. There is no requirement on companies to restrict legal content for adult users. Not the way you fucking worded it. In fact, they must carefully consider how they protect users' rights to freedom of expression while keeping people safe. Meta, Alphabet, X and ByteDance were all approached for comment. Here we go. Delightful. This one? Give me a second. That's too big. Okay. Thank you, Jim. I will be back momentarily. Give me a second, comrades. Hmm. Give me a second. So, turn your device. Oh, yeah. Huh. Oh yeah, we're all at the behest of Twitch, by the way, and YouTube, where I'm about to. What the? Just bring up a fucking. Huh? Come on. Look it up. I don't know why it's not connecting. Fair enough. Yes, it is a hearty word. It really shouldn't be, because that is a political word. It is not a racist word. Or not a racist word. It's yeah, it's a political word. Yeah. Oh yeah, I changed my moderation. I do try to let people express themselves. If I get to use the word cunt in daily life, everyone should be able to use it on stream. Because there is cunts out there. Oh, shush. I don't get to dictate if that's allowed in. That be banned by platforms, not by me. Yeah, I did actually go and check up the definition of it. It's quite funny. It means more than that. They're trying to shut us up. And by the way, that word is now policed in real life. You're not allowed to be anti-Zionist anymore. Obviously, because anti-Z is anti-Semitic. Last time I checked, it isn't. Obviously. Yeah, the minefield. And with this Online Safety Act, bigger minefield. Brilliant! Being able to try and dodge your own fucking government. Fucking shit. She deserves it. Difference between a cunt and a vagina. I have a vagina. It has a purpose. She is a cunt. She is horrible to her constituents, case in point, Ron Hubbard. Delightful people, aren't they? Some MPs. Oh. Safety playlist. Oh, I've already got it in my stream suggestions. Oh, cool. Right. Oh dear God. It does. Correct. Yes. They can say it all they want in the House of Commons, though, can't they? They can say whatever the fuck they like in that place. Playlists. Oh, have I still got that in there? Oh no, I've watched that. I can remove that. Remove. I have it. Have I shown that one yet? Oh, I have shown that one. Remove. Do. Playlists. There's only this one thing. Yeah. Be careful. Please don't do that. And I know you're not a Nazi cunt. You. Yeah, they can say what they want. There is no legal recourse anyone can do to them. That's how a lot of injunctions and super injunctions have been broken by MPs who disagree with the injunction being put in place, because apparently we live in a democracy and we can say what we want. But people who take out these super injunctions, which means they can't even be fucking mentioned, people can say, I can't say anything, I'm under an injunction. But with the super injunction, they can't even mention that they've been injuncted. Delightful. I've actually... Seriously, the amount of fucking wankers in that place. I can see why Mary left. I don't blame her. Oh, look. Treated myself. Lovely pink short t-shirt from Demo. Show of appreciation for what Demo does, because Demo is brilliant.
Nothing can justify what's going on in Gaza right now. No running water, no streetlights, no food, the horrific infections, the children waking up paralysed down one side of their body from shrapnel, children waking up and crying for their mothers, labelled wounded child, no surviving family. This is immoral, this is unlawful, this needs to be stopped. The driver we had who brought us out on the last day, he was Palestinian. His last words to me were, anyone left in Gaza now is either dead or will be dead very soon.
Right hand through.
Very chilling words.
Hello and welcome to Ways to Change the World. I'm Krishna Guru Murthy, and this is the podcast in which we talk to extraordinary people about the big ideas in their lives and the events that have helped shape them. My guest this week is Morgan McMonagle, an Irish vascular trauma surgeon who's recently returned from Gaza, where he worked in hospitals under bombardment. What he witnessed there goes beyond medicine, raising questions about humanity, morality, and the toll war takes on everyone involved. Morgan's also been involved in dealing with the aftermath of major incidents, including the Westminster Bridge attack and the Grenfell Tower disaster. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
If you could change the world, how would you change it?
Oh, tough question. I think equity. I think to create a world that everybody was equal in, regardless of race, religion, nationality, background, but also economic equity. I'm a firm believer that the root of all prejudice and racism is really economic prejudice and economic racism.
What did equity feel like in Gaza when you were there?
It felt non-existent. I can fully see that I come from an elite part of the world. I'm a white Caucasian male. that gives a certain birth elitism. And going into Gaza, seeing the world from the other side, from inside out, was very eye-opening. We have a population of people in a land roughly the size of Manhattan, with the density of roughly London, that can't leave without permission. There's no airport that's functioning. They are surrounded by another state that controls what they do, what they eat, what they drink, where they go, and yet they are certainly before the war they were thriving. So there's a mismatch in it's disproportionate, the mismatch in how the Palestinian people have been treated for a long time and are continuing to be treated compared to the rest of the world.
Do you think you've been to Gaza twice?
Yes.
In this conflict?
Yes.
Do you think this time you were there when you came under bombardment? We spoke to you on the news. Did it politicize you a bit more?
Yes, and that's always a concern when you're a healthcare worker or a humanitarian worker and you go in, because the 4 pillars are independence, humanity, impartiality, and neutrality. And regardless of who you are or where you are, you're there to provide humanitarian assistance, to relieve the suffering of the population, regardless of your own and everyone has prejudices, but regardless of that, you try to set them aside, and you should set them aside. The problem is, people like you, journalists, are the experts at bringing back evidence from any conflict zone around the world, and they're not allowed in. So I felt when I left that there was an element of, well, I'm not going to advocate for right or wrong, but what I can advocate for is the truth.
Yes.
And that's what I feel is the responsibility of a lot of healthcare workers, and I'm not the only one, that we do feel the need to speak up and speak about
we
the truth.
put you in that position, I suppose, because we're not there. We've relied a lot on healthcare workers to try and give us an impartial view of the realities.
But not just that, but if you look at any human rights situation, the right to free speech is always held very high in human rights and in civil rights in this country as well. And journalism always gets a very special corner of the right to free speech. Yet that's being denied, and therefore you are denying an entire population of people the right to say what's going on. And all you can do is report the facts. All you can do is report what you see. As regards blame, that's something that should be left to the courts in any situation. But certainly, as regards evidence, I can certainly speak for the truth as to what I saw and to what I was told.
When you got there and started living there, did you feel that you hadn't heard the truth? You know, did you get there and go, gosh, people don't actually know what's going on here?
I had been there in 2024 and I was in a field hospital in Rafah, and that was before the Israeli forces had occupied southern Gaza. So we were a little bit remote, although the Israeli forces were very close to the field hospital we were in. When I went back, I couldn't believe the amount of destruction that had happened. I really, and even though I have video and photographic evidence, it doesn't do justice to what the human eye can see and take in. Now, there was a ceasefire on when I went in February. So some supplies had come in, some medical supplies, some food and some water had come in. And things seemed to be changing slowly. The Palestinian population were getting on with things. They were on their 3rd wave of polio and measles vaccination at that stage. So they were a very industrial type of people. We took a drive from Khan Yunis up to Gaza City, and I really can't emphasize just how destroyed everything was, with the exception of the main roads. Some Palestinians had said to me at the time that they're not allowed, despite being allowed to bring in medical supplies and clothes and food, they weren't allowed to bring in anything to fix things, to fix electricity, to fix the roads, to fix street lighting. So there was a certain foreboding that was still there that the conflict was going to restart again as a result.
And what does it make you feel about humanity when you see destruction on that scale as a humanitarian?
It makes me feel angry that we, the Western world, are standing by allowing it to happen. I think Europe, not just the European Union, but Europe and Britain, I think we've let ourselves down. I mean, you have to remember that many of the sort of charters and laws and agreements that we've reached since World War II, because on the mantra that we'll never allow this happen again, we are allowing to happen again. And
rejoice, comrades. James Holmes is here. Hi, James. Welcome, welcome. Vascular trauma surgeon. He is Irish. That's the mini player. A bit more. Is that a bit better? Oh God. Is that a little bit better? Move you up here. Is that a little bit better?
Even recently, the High Court in Britain said it was they didn't find any fault, that it was perfectly lawful to send components for weaponry to be used in Gaza. Now, they are paying deference to parliamentary superiority to a certain degree, and I'm certainly in no position to call out a learned judge on the right or wrong of that law. But what I would ask the listeners is it moral? Or is any law at all if it's not moral? So if you look at the morality of what these components are being used for in the Middle East, it's certainly not moral. You know, one of the greatest things to come out of this country, not just the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Queen, David Bowie, one of the greatest things is actually the common law, because the common law is based on reasonability and proportionality. So I would love to stand up in Westminster and ask people, do you think it's reasonable and proportionate what is happening, regardless of who's right and who's wrong? Park that. Just look at the responsibility. Is it proportionate?
Okay.
Is it reasonable? And is it moral? And if the answer to those three questions is no, then something has to be done. People have to stop what's going on in Gaza at the moment, call a ceasefire, and then sort out the right and wrong after.
When you come back and life is getting on as normal and people are wandering into cafes and drinking coffee and going on holiday and buying, suntan cream.
Yeah.
How do you react to that? How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
When you come from such a dystopian
you can very quickly get on with your life and forget about it. But I did on this occasion. I felt compelled, along with a lot of my colleagues who were there. We felt compelled that we had to speak up for the truth, for what's going on, because things are so bad, are so poor. I mean, nothing can justify what's going on in Gaza right now. So when you see people getting on, I think there's a certain naivety, because life goes on. We've mortgages to pay, we've bills to pay, we've kids to drop to school, we've relationships to get on with, we've work to get on with. So it's very quickly things can get forgotten about. And like Gaza isn't the only conflict going on around the world. The Rohingya population are still being terrorized. Sudan has been terrorized. The war is still going on in Ukraine. And you can quickly get on with just ordinary life, and you can forget very quickly. And I think it's our job as healthcare workers, because the media aren't there, to try and keep it alive, in the hope. And I am losing a certain amount of hope that Europe will do something about it. I don't think America is. And they should, because again, going back to that birthright elitism that we have in the West, we have a responsibility. We're the ones who made the agreements. We're the ones who made the Rome Statute, the Geneva Conventions, the European Convention on Human Rights. We are the ones who made them to agree to, and yet we're not really in a meaningful way ensuring that they are being upheld around the world.
Why do you do this?
I think
maybe we should start with why are you a vascular trauma surgeon? I mean, that is literally the blood and guts work of dramatic medicine.
Yes. So I trained as a vascular surgeon in the West Midlands here in the UK, and then in Australia, and then I went to America and did a trauma fellowship in Philadelphia. And I think it takes a certain amount of grit, a certain style to your personality.
I will take his voice because he's speaking out about it. He does sound kind of centrist, doesn't he? I will hear him out. It's good that he's speaking up. But remember, some more privilege than a lot of us here. Being a fucking vascular surgeon. Good for him. Well done. We need vascular surgeons. That's ones that deal with the circulatory system. If anything goes wrong with your veins, your arteries, blah, 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 blah. And traumatic injuries. And helps stop the bleeding, blah, blah, blah. All that's fix the vascular system after we've had like strokes, heart attacks, blah, blah, blah. Things of that nature. So don't get me, I will not discount his knowledge about what's actually happening over there, especially where his specialty is concerned. Obviously a doctor, so I might be giving him more due deference, but I love doctors. They're brilliant people. They take good care of me. Don't get me wrong, I know a lot of them are centrists and quite a few of them are fucking conservatives. I've never understood the idea of a conservative doctor. They're literally there to help people. Politics, it gets fucking everywhere.
That you want to work in a situation where you have to make big, bold decisions very rapidly to get, a good outcome. And I had worked in Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham I think it was 2008, 2009, at the height of the number of young British soldiers coming back injured from the Afghan-Iraqi war that had happened at that time. And I do remember thinking that it's not right. These young men and women were coming back with the most horrific injuries that were life-changing. They're absolutely life-changing. And I was certainly very supportive of them, even though I was not necessarily supportive of the war and the conflict. You can support the warriors without supporting the war. I think from there, it just lit a spark. When I went to St. Mary's Hospital, I met one of my mentors, David Knott.
Pause. I'll be back in a second.
who's been a huge influence on on doing this style of work. And you get, for me, I do get a great sense of satisfaction being involved in something bigger than myself. And that goes back to maybe the original question of equity, that maybe if all of us looked at doing something that was bigger than ourselves, the world might be a better place.
Well said, Jim. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose if I was your dad, I might say, yes, but son, every life is the same. You can save a life, run over by a car.
Yes.
In Waterford.
Yeah.
And it has the same value as the life you're saving in Gaza.
Yes.
But you've chosen to go to dangerous places.
Yes. And we do both, whether it's a life in London or life in Ireland or life in Gaza. So I have chosen to put myself in a situation that brings me a certain level of satisfaction, because everybody wants to do a good job, no matter what. But the injuries I was seeing in Gaza amongst children and women were as horrific, if not more horrific, than the injuries I was seeing in the young soldiers coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq in Selly Oak Hospital. So I think it's important. I think it's really important that the world realizes that, because you can very easily forget. You can call it propaganda if you wish. And it goes back again to what I said. Is a law any law at all if it's not a moral law? Because don't forget, every single law that was passed by the Third Reich in late 1930s Germany was lawful. Everything was lawful because the executive needed to ratchet the courts within their own goals and aims. They needed to justify and make lawful anything they did to the Jewish population and more in Central Europe in the 1930s. It was lawful. We need to stand up for that. Going back to, again, what I said about the common law, what would a reasonable person think? Would a reasonable person believe that it's okay to have to open a 4-year-old child's abdomen and chest at the same time, stop bleeding, and they die? Wave after wave of children coming in, mostly dead, cold and dead.
Rejoice, comrades. Sozzled Snake is here. Hi, Sozzled. Hi, Sozzled. Trauma surgeon working in Gaza. He is Irish. He sounds delightful. So he's seen things. I asked my sister if she would go and work there, and she said, fuck no. My younger sister's a community nurse, palliative, and end of life care. So she goes out and helps people who are suffering basically terminal illnesses. That's traumatic enough for her, apparently, and she doesn't want to go into an active war zone. In a way, I don't blame her. I'd love for her to use her skills to actually help these people, but she's got a family to worry about and stuff like that.
Some in parts, some intact. The gender-based violence, the dehumanization, the debasement, the no running water, no street lights, the no food, the horrific infections, the children waking up paralyzed down one side of their body from shrapnel, children waking up and crying for their mothers, labelled, wounded child, no surviving family, WC, NSF, but no surviving family, no parent, or crying for their mothers, and they're now an orphan as well on top of everything else. If a reasonable person can stand back and say, this is immoral, this is unlawful, this needs to be stopped. You don't need to be a legal mind to do it. You don't need to be a humanitarian. You just need to be a reasonable person, the man or woman on the Clapham omnibus.
People always wonder how medics in that situation, the Palestinian medics as well as the visiting medics, don't collapse from PTSD or just go mad from what they're dealing with. I mean, how do you explain that? Is it that you are basically so busy doing what you're doing your job?
Yeah. So you're in survival mode. And so the night that Nasser Hospital was targeted, I was there. I was on the 4th floor. I was in the intensive care unit, and the entire building shook. Looked out the window and saw there was fire on the 2nd floor. So the first thing I did was, when it went into survival mode, check where the fire escapes were, make sure the friends and colleagues I was with were okay. The Palestinians couldn't have been nicer. They were more concerned for us than anything else. That gave me a glimpse into the life of a regular, everyday Palestinian for the last 20 months, 21 months. They've been living in that same survival mode every single day since then. I don't recall being scared. I definitely had an element of anticipatory anxiety, but I was in survival mode. I was focused. Situational awareness is probably the best way to put it, which is something that you do in surgery,
Right.
especially vascular surgery and trauma surgery, because disease is very unpredictable. Things can go wrong very quickly, so you need to maintain situational awareness. So that's probably the best way to describe what I was in. People do react differently afterwards. It's only afterwards, when you come out of a force majeure, that you, and we were warned that by some of our clinical psychologists who were part of our team, said to us that when there's a ceasefire, and remember, we went in while the ceasefire was still holding, a lot of the Palestinians will now start to suffer mental health issues because they look back and think how much their lives have changed, how much they've lost, how much destruction, how much they have to do. But while the war is going on, everyone's in survival mode, looking for food, looking to protect your children, looking to get on with everyday life, shelter. I think when healthcare workers come out of a healthcare zone or a conflict zone like that, they do react in different ways. I know some people have been very upset and don't want to go back. I think my go-to has been a combination of anger and guilt. I felt quite angry that we are allowing it to happen. And I say we, I'm part of the Western world as well. And a lot of guilt that I was leaving a lot of very good colleagues behind. I was leaving human beings behind. I mean, human rights are based on one premise only, the fact that we are human. That is it. And everything else stems from that. And they too are also human beings. And the driver we had who brought us out on the last day when we were exiting into Israel from Gaza, his last words to me were, and he was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but kind of not, and he had a diplomatic passport but wasn't allowed to leave. He worked for the UN, he was Palestinian, and his last words to me were,
Fuck.
anyone left in Gaza now is either dead or will be dead very soon. Very chilling words.
How are you able to think about the humanity of the people who are sending the bombs over, the Israelis?
Well, Europe is also supplying arms. North America is supplying arms. So I think we have a shared responsibility. I don't think it's not just Israel, although they may be launching them, but we're supporting it. I don't know, I'm not a security expert, but I don't believe they could do it without the support of the West, of Europe and North America, not just to supply them with the equipment to do it, but also with the political permission slip. So I think we all have a certain element of responsibility there.
Correct.
And there's a lot of people making a lot of money off the arms trade.
I suppose what I mean is, as somebody who deals with the situation when a life is lost, do you think the people who take the decisions to take a life, potentially, or support it
Yeah.
as part of their national identity,
Yeah.
understand what it is that is happening?
Oh, they know. Oh, for sure, they know. I mean, it's not an even fight. It's not a war. It's a conflict. So you've got a population essentially of civilians, and you might say there's terrorists amongst the civilians, versus what is considered a sovereign state, that is a nuclear state, that is the most sophisticated army in the world, next to maybe North America and the USA. They know what they're doing, and they know the destruction that those bombs can do and are doing. Absolutely. I do also believe that when you get into a situation like that, that both sides become dehumanized. There's no doubt whatsoever that the aggressors have dehumanized the Palestinian population. And that's what happens. It's kind of natural. If you look at any genocide that has happened, like Rwanda, or the genocide of World War II, or happened in the former Yugoslavia, you dehumanize. You don't look at the population as humans anymore, but you also, to a certain degree, dehumanize yourself to be able to do it, to be able to go in there and kill people and not care, and almost get a thrill out of it. Because like I said, everybody comes to work to do a good job, and the good job there is to kill the enemy. And again, that goes back to what I said about equity. If the whole world was equal, we wouldn't dehumanize each other. We wouldn't look at a population as being somewhat subhuman. And
I mean, you mentioned the Hamas operation in Gaza while you were there. I mean, again, people say, well, what's the truth about this? You know, when you're there and you're being asked by journalists, are there Hamas people in the hospital? And you say no. Is that the truth, or is that what you have to say because they are there?
No, look, I don't know. We go in impartial. Nobody comes up to me, or up to anybody and say, "Hi, I'm a commander in this terrorist organization."
That's
the whole idea of being part of an organization. It's all a bit, subverted, and it's all a bit underhanded and covert. So I don't know, but that still doesn't justify targeting healthcare workers and a population of civilians. Nothing justifies that.
That's a slightly different question. What I suppose I'm getting at is, did you also find yourself blaming and being angry with the Hamas pillars within Gaza that, to some degree are part of what's going on?
Yeah, to a certain degree. Again, the proportion of how much they're now responsible should come out in the evidence. Evidence can only be gathered if people are allowed in who are expert at gathering evidence, whether it's United Nations or journalists. So I don't know. It's not really my role to gather that level of evidence. All I can say is the injuries I saw were caused by the Israeli forces. The blame is something that needs to be done by at a much higher level. In this country, it would be the judiciary. Yeah. I guess in an international conflict, it should be the International Criminal Court. But of course, compliance with the International Criminal Court means you have to agree to it. And the three most powerful nations in the world,
we are failing in
right
our
now,
duty as a government,
are not signed up to it.
Well,
so there's no compliance. So it gives people almost a carte blanche to do what they want with impunity. When it comes to terrorism, I mean, there's no actual definition of terrorism. I mean, I think it's the United Nations, and I could be wrong in this General Assembly resolution. I think it's 4960. It talks about if you intentionally or calculatedly create a state of terror amongst a population or a group within a population for whatever reason, religion, national, idealistic, ethnic, whatever your reason is, I'd ask you which side is causing terror right now.
How many foreign doctors would have been in Gaza when you were there?
Oh God, in Gaza in total, I don't know. In my group in Nasser Hospital at that time, there was probably about 16 of us at that time, from a combination of USA, UK, and Jordan. They were from Islamic backgrounds who obviously felt a need and a calling to go back to Gaza, and that's understandable. There weren't so many non-Islamic people like myself there, but I think if word got out properly, showing the destruction that's going on, I think people would be morally obliged to sign up and go to Gaza. I mean, I saw a lot more people in Ukraine when I was there from the NHS in North America. And I can't really understand why. And I'm a great believer in supporting Ukraine. I've been there, and I'm involved in training Ukrainian surgeons in war surgery.
Rejoice!
But it's very disproportionate, the West's response to Ukraine than it is to...
Rejoice, comrades! It's the Morton has arrived. Hi, Morton. How are you? Gigantifying a blobby. Fantastic. My middle sister was better at doing the blobby talking. I don't know why. She seemed to be quite good at it. Oh, thank you, Morton. I love you too. Give me a second. I'm just putting emollient on. I need it desperately, my fentanyl patch, but the actual Medicaid part of the patch is horrible. It dries your skin out and makes it really patchy looking. So I use the emollient to rehydrate it and soothe it so it's not so fucking itchy. Yay! I have an influence on you, and most Scots actually do roller R's. They've tried to get us to stop doing that. Nice try. Ain't gonna fucking happen. We've been rolling our R's for fucking centuries. Oh, no, it's literally built into our DNA, I believe. Seriously, trying to stop us from rolling our R's. Good luck with that one. Stupid final patch. Much better. If you have dry skin or anything, try this. It's called Xeroderma. It's petroleum based. It's called an ointment, but it's basically just a skin treatment, especially if you've got dry skin. That was originally bought for Super Hubby because he's got super dry skin, and it annoys me. He's fine with it. He's had it for fucking decades. Yay! More anarchists for my community. Between yourself and Gemma, Story Girl, everyone, I demand you go and follow Story Girl. She be based. An Australian. She lives in Adelaide. Plus, she's really good.
Gaza. And I feel my own, just purely my opinion, there's an element of prejudice. And then maybe that again goes back to your original question. If there was more equity in the world,
equity? What's that?
Then we wouldn't be seeing this disproportionate response.
Prejudice against Muslims or Arabs or all of the above?
I think prejudice, it depends what you mean by prejudice. Prejudice against anybody who doesn't look like us, who doesn't behave like us, who doesn't believe in the same beliefs. The whole idea of equity is that you can live your life and I can live mine. Within reason, of course. You can't just do whatever you want. I think it's very, very unfortunate that if you speak out for the truth and you speak out for humanity against what's going on in Gaza, you can very quickly get tarnished with the stain of being an anti-Semite. And that stain appears to be indelible. My own country, Ireland, is already been...
He has got it half correct. Half correct. He got the first part of it correct. He forgot the second part. There's equality and equity are two different things. Hannah carrots. Gemma do be desperately trying to make me an ANCOM. She seems to be doing rather well. I'm still holding firm to my Marxist beliefs, obviously. I was a trot, so I've moved further to the centre, as much as a Marxist can, obviously. So I've moved quite kind of, maybe anarcho-syndicalist. I might be getting to that bit. Still Marxist. It will be a hard slog for Gemma to try and get me over to the anarchist camp. Don't get me wrong, I still want a revolution. Rosa was always right. I urge you to go and read Rosa Luxemburg. She is legendary. And if you can get through how dense he is, Gramsci. His books are still on my book list to read. Keep on meaning to go back over to LibGen. I was over there a month ago downloading some stuff just for self-reading. About Buchanan and stuff. I have a fair collection of Marx and Engels and some Lenin. Who else do I have? I have Parenti. I now have David Graeber. Bullshit Jobs. It arrived yesterday. It is sitting on my bookshelf taunting me to read it. I'm still reading a couple of other books at the minute. One fiction and one theory. I give myself far too much to do, really. But there's fuck all else going on in my life, other than going to see the doctor and helping my family. And educating everyone here. I will get through my books, don't you worry. I'm only 46, there's plenty of years left.
Labelled as an anti-Semitic country, which is absolutely not true. If you go back and look at the facts and our history, it is absolutely not true. We used to have it in our constitution. It used to be one of the articles in our constitution that specifically made reference to the Jewish congregation in Ireland, just as an aside, as an example. But yet, we see it's very easy to name call.
Are you being accused of anti-Semitism, having spoken out?
Not directly. I haven't received a huge amount of backlash, I must say. I've looked on social media, and in general, if somebody says they must stop what they're doing at the moment, call a ceasefire, immediately somebody is labelled an anti-Semite or a supporter of Hamas. I mean, it's a supporter of humanity. It's a supporter of human rights, which is a completely separate subject than the issue of blame. It's about truth.
And so, what do you think is going on there in terms of the labelling of people as anti-Semitic if they speak out?
I think it's disingenuous. I think it's lazy. It's easy. I think it's part of us.
I admit when I'm wrong.
Nobody likes to admit they're wrong. Nobody likes to face certain truths about themselves. And if you carry a certain belief and somebody shows you evidence to the contrary, it is difficult as human beings for us to turn around and say, yes, you're right, I am wrong. So it's easier. I think it's easier, not to mention lazy, just to say, well, you must be an anti-Semite. You know, I think that's what it is. I think it's human nature. I think we like to protect our own prejudice because it's something that's formed part of our characters for a long, long time. Not since birth, usually since becoming adults.
And how different is the situation for you in Ukraine then? Does it throw up the same moral questions?
Well, as regards
human behavior, I suppose.
Human behavior. Well, first of all, it is a different situation that Ukraine and Russia is a war. It's two sovereign states. Both have armies, and both have arms, and both the actual playing field, the pitch is a lot more level. The infrastructure is still standing in Ukraine. There's still roads, there's still street lighting, there's still food, there's still hospitals, still healthcare. That is not the situation in Gaza. So I do think there is a huge moral difference in what's going on in Ukraine than what's going on in Gaza, because there seems to be a purpose to wipe out the civilian population in Gaza. This is just from what I can see, that people who are in humanitarian protected, deconflicted zones are still being bombed, are still being shot by quadcopters. They're being starved out. We're seeing the effects of starvation. Things I read about in books in medical school that only existed in sub-Saharan Africa in the 70s and 80s are now being seen in Gaza. So it is not the same situation.
What would you say then to people who are considering careers in medicine? I mean, are you a particular type, or is this within all doctors?
No, there are so many branches of medicine, and there's it.
Thank you, Sozold. Always a pleasure to see you, my comrade. Night night, sweet dreams. Stay hydrated. Stay based. See you later. Say good night to Sozold, everyone. He be based, and I love him.
All personalities can do medicine. I mean, even if you're interested in humanitarian medicine, you don't have to go to a conflict zone. I mean, if you look at the big 5 killers in sub-Saharan Africa, it's hunger, dirty water and sanitation, tuberculosis, measles, and malaria. You don't need to be a conflict surgeon to manage those. And HIV, of course, is a big one now as well. But the Western world, again, is cutting back on funding for those. Again, our own moral high horse that we have created, that we've described, our own sanctimonious high horse and Tartuffery that we...
Self-care. Remember self-care. If you need to go, Jim, don't worry. I'll be fine. Go for a nap if you want and come back. But always self-care.
We've created, we're not living by. So I would say anybody who wants to do medicine, do it. There's a certain hunger for people who want to do medicine that won't go away if you don't do it. And as you progress through your career, if you have a draw to humanitarianism, then I would say there's a huge amount of self-satisfaction in it. You don't have to go to a conflict zone, but if you do, go with an NGO group that's responsible. I certainly felt very supported by the NGO group I was with, notwithstanding the fact that you're still relying on human error and that you are taking a certain risk by going in, especially in the current conflict, because the classic standards of humanitarianism that you do not target healthcare facilities are not being adhered to. They're not being adhered to in Ukraine either. But Gaza is a very small zone in comparison.
In your sort of quiet moments now that time has passed, I mean, in interviews, you will talk about the 4-year-old child who you open up and who dies.
Yeah.
I presume that's a very traumatic thing to witness.
Yeah.
And when you're involved in it, when you're there touching this child, trying to save him or her. How does that kind of thing sit with you with time? You know, does it haunt you?
Does it haunt me? It doesn't go away. I think every healthcare, every doctor and nurse has their own sort of internal quiet place of contemplation. And I've had patients over the years I've often thought about in my regular work. That doesn't go away, and that's okay. That's to be expected. I guess the level of destruction and inhumanity and inhuman suffering I saw in Gaza was on a different scale. And the sort of supports you have are always with people who've shared the same experience. It's the same as groups that are designed for maybe, people who've had a history of drug abuse or alcohol abuse or violence or have had a force majeure. You get a huge amount of shared experience support because your loved ones, your family, your friends, partners, they'll never really understand on a visceral level what you saw or went through. So that's the first thing I'd say. It does help doing things like this. It helps speaking out about it. Just like people who've gone through a force majeure, for example, maybe alcohol abuse in the past, they often go on to careers to help other people from their experience. So I think speaking out, I honestly, when I went to Gaza last year, I did not think I'd still be sitting here speaking about it over a year later. I thought the whole thing would be done and dusted and there would be a peace process of some sort. And that doesn't seem to be on the horizon. If anything, the world seems to be getting worse. Unfortunately, the worst is now in the hands of 3 white Caucasian men. We don't seem to want meaningful peace.
There are no Palestinians.
Meaningful peace, like where your actions reflect your words, and that's a great fear right now. That's a great fear for all of us, Europe as well.
So will you go back?
I would go back, yes. I don't know if I get back because I've spoken out. The fact that journalists can't get in, healthcare workers are now being put in a situation to advocate for what's going on.
So you need to be approved, do you, by Israel? You need to be before approved. You can go into Gaza.
Yes, yeah, and it's controlled very tightly, and we don't get a reason if you're refused. You're not given a reason why, so we don't know if there was any principles or policy attached to it. It could just be random. I don't know, but yes, I would go back. I think there's a greater need now than ever for Gaza. If you were to ask me what they need tonight other than a ceasefire, they need food and clean water. They don't even need healthcare right now. Yes, they need healthcare, but right now, tonight, they need food. They're being starved out of it. And again, it's the cynic in me. It's not even the cynic in me, but while I was there, I should point out that they were on their 3rd round of measles and polio vaccination. And yet they couldn't get other equipment in. Why were they allowed to have those vaccinations? Well, we know from COVID that infectious diseases does not respect international barriers. So the cynic in me would say, well, we don't want polio and measles spilling into Israel, so we better have a vaccination campaign. But meanwhile, children were dying of hypothermia because that won't contaminate internationally. Children are dying of lack of food. We were seeing mothers, because it's still a very high birth rate in Gaza and Palestine in general, we were seeing babies born early, so a lot of premature babies, and babies small for dates. Classic sort of signposts of malnutrition and stress of war. I'll also point out as well, and this can be fact-checked, that before the war, if you look at maternal mortality and neonatal mortality, death of young babies, is also considered a fairly good signpost of how well a healthcare system is doing. The maternal mortality after birth or during birth and the neonatal mortality were better in Palestine compared to the USA before the war.
Well, they had a very highly educated,
very high
population,
very
as well.
very high literacy rate, which is a great reflection on can-do-itness. So if there was a ceasefire, I've no doubt the Palestinians would manage to rebuild, but it's going to take a long time. One of the things I did notice that driving around last year in the field hospital, we had scores and scores and scores of children with amputations, some both legs.
That's the one thing I want to point out. Before all of this, it was still kind of bad before October the 7th. But before that, they were one of the most highly educated, highly literate societies in Western Asia. Yes, Jim. Hang on. Three days ago. So no, 3 days ago. So now. Yeah. They were one of the most highly educated, highly literate societies in Western Asia. That's the first thing that usually gets taken out, the ability to educate a populace. They took out the schools, they took out the colleges and the universities, the places of higher learning, because an educated society proves problems. They had, yes, some has been allowed in. A tiny fraction of what they need to deal with actually what's happening on the ground. And as a vascular trauma surgeon, he would know that, because he needs to literally knit people's working vascular systems back together, including children. Delightful. Yeah. Initial assessment, triage, surgery, post-surgery, then again some more post-surgery triage. That's how it works here in the West, the educated part of the world, if you want to put it that way. That's the line, that's what it goes through to deal with just one patient, not fucking thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of people. So there's it all gets segmented, and it's all one stream to actually deal with one patient. Even in this Western society, this country right here that we are all living in, there are gaps in that stream, that line of how to treat trauma, how people get dealt with within the NHS, because defunding exists. Amazing, isn't it? We are slightly different. We've prioritised the NHS Scotland. Still underfunding happens up here, obviously, but slightly better than in England and Wales. Northern Ireland is a little bit unknown to me. I have Irish friends educating me on this, about what it's like on the ground over there. In Ireland? No, Northern Ireland. With any luck, reunification in my lifetime. Then the fight won't be over, obviously, because a lot of the people that I know in Northern Ireland are leftists like myself, including some Marxists and communists and anarchists in Northern Ireland. We are talking, don't you worry. Ask the trauma surgeon, or ask an anaesthetologist, any of the anaesthetiologists who are currently working in Gaza. Not enough. There's not enough. So what they've been telling to these people, to these children, and to these young adults, and other people, other Palestinians, they're saying, if you can go through this traumatic, life-altering surgery without anaesthetic, we can stitch back up, we can deal with it, give you the amputation, but without anaesthetic. Delightful! I've had anaesthetic for every surgery that I've ever had. Some local, some general. It's split down the middle, really. But for when I went in for my pain injections right into my spine, it is local. It is a form of an epidural. It's not proper epidural that people who are going through childbirth get. Some of these women, pregnant people, have literally screamed, "Just give me that fucking epidural!" After they said, "No, I want a natural childbirth. I don't want any drugs." Then they changed their tune because childbirth, be traumatic. Who'd have thunk it? My mum, when she was having me all those many moons ago, said, "No, I saw what my mum went through, my gran, because she was a teenager when my youngest uncle was born." Said, "No, I saw what my mum went through. Give me the fucking epidural now." She had an epidural for my second sister, the middle sister, and he thought, "No, I can get through this. I've had 2 other children." And she got halfway through the pregnancy, halfway through the labour, and said, "No, fuck it, give me the epidural." This was for my younger sister. My youngest sister's birth for my mother was difficult. Poor mum. In some ways, I've been spared going through childbirth. Talking to all my aunties who have went through childbirth. Never forget that childbirth does have the ability to end the mother. Not that West Streeting would ever know anything about that, of course. Our NHS up here in Scotland, the one in charge, the civilian person, she is a woman. She is a mum. She has went through childbirth. So as much as they can, they're actually funding having better maternity care. Don't get me wrong, things slip through the gaps and stuff. Well, all the ones that I know that were born, the last one that I know of that was born was 2 years ago now, and that mother, that relative of mine says, "I'm not bringing another child." The pregnancy and the delivery itself were fairly okay for her. It was her third child, and she wouldn't do it because of the current situation. I don't blame her. I have been spared because this form, nah. Even back when I was in my 20s, I would never have survived a pregnancy. Even just the pregnancy itself would have fucked up my spine and my hips. They're already dodgy. Wasn't worth my while, really. I live vicariously through my nieces and nephews.
Gone, some both legs and upper limb gone. Driving around Khan Yunis and in Gaza City, I didn't see any amputees. So where are they? They're at home. So the entire society has been turned upside down, where the children, as they grow up, would look after elderly patients, their parents. That's now turned upside down because the parents are now at home looking after disabled children, while the other children who haven't lost their limbs are the ones going out collecting water and food and doing jobs to try and get by. So I think it's going to take a very, very long time if Gaza survives. My big fear is it won't.
I mean, we haven't even had time really to talk about the fact that you were involved in the aftermath of the Westminster Bridge attack and the Grenfell fire and these sort of terrible disasters, as I suppose just by virtue of being a specialised trauma surgeon in a high centre. But have you sort of become the Kate Adie of travelling doctors? Do you attract trouble?
Do I attract? God, I hope not.
I've been told that as well, Jim. Beautiful in the eyes, apparently, and beautiful soul, and very warm and welcoming, and always delightful. Don't get me wrong, I do get angry. I try to be as welcoming as possible. Give people their due, and if they start annoying me, bonk. None of yous, obviously. Yous are all based. You all love me. You're helping to inflate my ego. It's got bigger, don't get me wrong. I know my place, though. I am but one lowly leftist in a screaming horde of other leftists. You get great analysis from people other than myself, obviously. Raptor Blue, Helena over at No Justice, Kev, obviously, Tina 2, Complainy Laney, Celticness. There is a wealth of us from across the globe.
I suppose if you put yourself out there enough, you'll reap what you sow to a certain degree. I'm absolutely happy. I don't want to say proud, because pride is something that's very elite. It's a very elite word. I would say I'm very happy to be involved in something bigger, like when something like I'd rather Westminster didn't happen or Grenfell didn't happen, but being it's good to be a part of something when it does happen. And unfortunately, we live in a world where we're going to continue to see major conflicts and major disasters with climate change and conflict. And in fact, even WHO have put out figures that show that in the last 5 years, there's been a 20% increase in the number of people exposed to war and conflict in the world. And that goes back to my original comment that the biggest form of prejudice and racism in the world is actually economic. It's economic apartheid.
That is based.
Morgan, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And that's it for this episode of Ways to Change the World. You can watch all of these interviews on the Channel 4 News YouTube channel. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thank you, Krish. Correct, Jim. Correct. We will need to show that one again. Led by donkeys. Onkeys? What are onkeys? Led by donkeys. Please. There, sir. Led by donkeys. Where is it? Q channel?
And Lawyers for Israel Limited, a private company that has tried to silence support for Palestine that it disagrees with. This year, as aid agencies warned of an impending famine in Gaza, the CEO of Lawyers for Israel suggested in a debate about the war's death toll that the Israeli food blockade could result in a reduction in obesity in Gaza. My name is Em Hilton, and I'm a Jewish activist who campaigns against Israeli apartheid and for a free Palestine. And this is a film about a group called UK Lawyers for Israel. I'm speaking to you from the offices of the Charity Commission near Liverpool. We think there's a reasonable case for the Commission to launch an investigation into the charitable wing of UK Lawyers for Israel. Once this projection is finished, we're going to send a letter to these offices asking them to do just that. UKLFI has two entities, the Lawyers for Israel Charitable Trust and Lawyers for Israel Limited, a private company that has tried to silence support for Palestine that it disagrees with. This year, as aid agencies warned of an impending famine in Gaza, the CEO of Lawyers for Israel suggested in a debate about the war's death toll that the Israeli food blockade could result in a reduction in obesity in Gaza and may therefore increase the average life expectancy there. UKLFI's patrons constitute a roll call of the great and the good, including former Conservative leader Michael Howard, former Supreme Court Judge John Dyson, and celebrated lawyer David Pannick KC, who has represented Boris Johnson and the late Queen. No doubt these patrons don't actually write the letters in question, but LFI begins some of its letters by stating, "Our patrons are some of the most esteemed lawyers in the UK." So how do UKLFI try to silence views they disagree with? Well, they write letters. Legal letters. Lots of them. Last year, Lawyers for Israel Limited wrote one to North Hertfordshire District Council, demanding that a kite-making workshop that was to be held in Hitchin Community Centre in solidarity with Gazans be cancelled. Why? UKLFI claimed that the workshop would be a reminder of kites used to burn Israeli agricultural land in 2018, and quote, a grim reminder of the horrific machine gun-wielding terrorists who used paragliders to enter Israel on October 7th. Their letter continued. Creating Palestinian flags in a workshop while the Gaza war is still ongoing implies support for the Hamas terrorist group and their horrific recent activities. In reality, Gazan children have a long history of kite flying. In 2011, Gazans set a Guinness World Record when they flew 12,000 kites simultaneously. Kites
fear and spirit of fear and the spirit of reap. Just reap. Yeah. I know Titus Andronicus. Yeah. Everything's Hamas, don't you know? Seriously, can we stop just punishing people from speaking out? It does, Jim. I'm starting to see the inherent flaws in our voting system. Don't get me wrong, proportional representation will still have that feature, obviously. Slightly more democratic, but at the end of the day, it's still electoralism.
have nothing to do with October 7th, but under pressure from LFI, the local council, which owns the community centre, told the organisers the event was cancelled. Then there was the time in February 2023 when Lawyers for Israel Limited wrote to Chelsea and Westminster Hospital demanding that the hospital remove pictures of 21 plates painted by refugee children in Gaza. UK LFI claimed the display breached the law. In evidence, they said one of the plates pictured a Palestinian flag flying from the Dome of the Rock in East Jerusalem. According to international law, the Dome of the Rock is in a territory illegally occupied by Israel. But LFI claimed that the sight
Well
of a
said,
Palestinian
Elron.
flag flying from the site would leave Jewish patients feeling vulnerable, harassed, and victimized. UK LFI also complained about the description on another plate that said, in Arabic, Palestinian women have been using a wood-fueled oven to bake bread for hundreds of years. And what was wrong with that wording? It implied, in UK LFI's words, that Palestinians as a defined people have been living in the area for hundreds of years. And that, apparently, was unacceptable. The
They
letter
have
from
been.
UK LFI claimed another plate denied the existence of Israel and demanded that the entire exhibition be removed. The hospital acquiesced and did exactly that. Then there was the time last year that the British Medical Association wrote to then Foreign Secretary David Cameron asking him to push for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the end of the targeting of hospitals. Lawyers for Israel Limited wrote to the BMA claiming that because the Medical Association's letter to Cameron had not mentioned Hamas or the Israeli hostages, the BMA had given the impression that it is, quote, a supporter of the terrorist organization Hamas, and that the BMA appears to be expressing an opinion or
miss the
belief that is
beast of
supportive of
Bolsover.
this prescribed organization, contrary to the Terrorism Act 2000. And just this month, Lawyers for Israel Limited persuaded Camden Council to serve an enforcement notice on Palestine House, the leading Palestinian cultural space in the UK, forcing it to remove a billboard that says, "Stop the genocide." LFI asserted the accusation of genocide is false and said, the advertisements on and around Palestine House promote hate related to protected characteristics of Israeli nationality, Jewish ethnicity and religion, and Zionist philosophical belief. UK LFI has been reported to have links to the government of Israel. In 2019, the organization privately approached the Israeli government to request assistance after it had been accused of making defamatory statements by two organizations operating in the West Bank. On its website, the charitable wing of UK LFI calls the occupied West Bank Judea and Samaria, a form of words that denies the Palestinian people's claim to a homeland. The charity's legal director described the West Bank to a parliamentary committee as Israeli sovereign territory, a position at odds with both international law and the official UK government position. But still,
Correct.
Lawyers for Israel Limited writes letters attempting to silence other people's views. In fact, Lawyers for Israel Limited has sent dozens, maybe hundreds of letters to people and groups. And while some of those letters address genuine cases of anti-Semitism, others appear to be designed to cancel expressions of support for the Palestinian cause. The weaponization of anti-Semitism is not only an egregious attack on Palestine advocacy, civil liberties, and human rights. It also hurts the fight against anti-Semitism. It makes it harder for us to identify true anti-Semitism when it happens, and creates skepticism about whether anti-Jewish racism even still exists or is just a political tool. Receiving a legal letter is often scary and distressing, especially for individuals and small groups without access to affordable legal advice. In many letters, Lawyers for Israel Limited cites the legal requirement of public bodies to, quote, foster good relations between different religions and ethnicities. But what kind of community relations do UK LFI foster? In 2019, the charitable wing of UK LFI hosted the extreme Israeli settler organization Regavim, inviting its representative to give what LFI later described on its website as an intelligent and interesting talk. Regavim was founded by the far-right political activist Bezalel Smotrich, now a member of Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet. In recent months, Smotrich has publicly said it may be just and moral to starve 2 million Palestinians in Gaza, and vowed that Gaza will be entirely destroyed. But Smotrich was using dangerous and dehumanizing language before LFI gave the organization he founded, Regavim, a platform in the UK. One distinguished historian of the Holocaust and genocide at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Professor Daniel Blattman, wrote in 2017 that Smotrich's proposals for the Palestinians could herald a genocide. In 2024, 17 US senators and 71 members of the House of Representatives called for sanctions against Regavim, claiming it has been involved in actions that resulted in the forcible displacement of Palestinians from their land in the West Bank. In June 2025, Smotrich was sanctioned by the UK. So just to be clear, a child's plate featuring a Palestinian flag flying on illegally occupied land is, according to LFI, likely to leave people feeling vulnerable, harassed, and victimized. But a charity giving a platform to an extreme settler organization founded by a racist far-right activist is fine. It's worth saying at this point that the invitation to Regavim came from UK LFI's charitable wing, the part of the LFI operation that is subject to regulation by the Charity Commission. In its submission to the Commission, detailing its charitable purposes, the UK LFI Charitable Trust claims it exists to, quote, promote racial harmony. And yet, until last month, when Led by Donkeys started seriously looking into the activities of UK LFI, the charity's website featured a video of the talk given by Regavim to UK LFI. That's now been set to private. but references that are complementary to
Much
Regavim
better.
remain on the website. UKLFI is big on charity law. It has submitted numerous complaints against charities to the Charity Commission. But we think there are reasonable grounds to believe the Lawyers for Israel Charitable Trust should itself be subject to investigation by the Charity Commission. For example, there are their public statements apparently rejecting international law regarding the occupied Palestinian territories. UKLFI is big on charity law. It has submitted numerous complaints against charities to the Charity Commission. But we think there are reasonable grounds to believe the Lawyers for Israel Charitable Trust should itself be subject to investigation by the Charity Commission. For example, there are their public statements apparently rejecting international law.
Huh. Can everyone still hear the video?
Regarding the occupied we think the charity's public position are at odds with UKLFI's stated charitable objectives of promoting racial harmony and advancing legal education around anti-Semitism. So once this film has been projected, we are going to deliver a letter to the Charity Commission, a complaint requesting that an investigation be opened into the UK Lawyers for Israel Charitable Trust. Led by Donkeys wrote a letter to LFI laying out the claims in this film and inviting them to respond. UK LFI replied saying,
Palestinian kites do not have a pleasant or peaceful reputation. They are associated with violence, death and destruction. Paragliders, which are in effect large mechanised kites carrying machine gun wielding terrorists, were used to massacre young Israelis at a music festival.
UK LFI added,
The BMA letter contains serious omissions, as well as misleading information, incorrect facts, false allegations and pure anti-Israel propaganda.
Regarding reported links to the Israeli government, they said,
UK LFI Limited asked a number of organisations and individuals, including the Israeli government, to provide information and evidence to help defend itself and two of its directors against false claims of defamation by two entities. UK LFI Charitable Trust had nothing to do with this.
Regarding the Regavim talk, UK LFI said,
Bezalel Smotrich had been one of the founders of Regavim, but had left Regavim several years before 2019. The Charity Commission reviewed complaints regarding this talk in 2019 and decided not to take any further action.
They added,
Neither UK LFI Limited nor UK LFI Charitable Trust is weaponising anti-Semitism. UK LFI Limited uses the law to counter anti-Israel activity, and UK LFI Charitable Trust assists victims of anti-Semitism, as well as educating about Israel's legal rights. We are approached by people who have experienced anti-Israel or anti-Jewish racism or hate, and we try to combat this using the law. It is arrogant to deny that this has occurred. The work of LFI Charitable Trust involves advancing legal education, assisting victims of anti-Semitism, and promoting racial harmony.
Oh dear God. An hour and 16 minutes. Oh. Mehdi versus Elon? Oh yeah, truly fucking dystopian. Considering what's happening now. Between 1,750 and 1,850 calories a day for female AFAB people, and 2,000 and 2,250 for EMAB. Obviously, there's great swath of just the UK at the minute. I'll park Palestine and the West Bank over here for a second. But there's lots of places across the UK who are not getting their calorific intake, let alone nutritional intake. It sucks. I despise it. Please, feed people. I struggle to eat due to the jaw instability, but I have food available. Yeah, it's literally getting blocked at the gates. Who's blocking it? I can't possibly tell you. Ugh. Literally starving a population. Disgusting. No. Fuck it. I'm game. Let's see how much we can get through this one. Mary versus Elon. Elon? Oh, no, Zed. The tail. No problem, Elron. If you need to go and do shit, go do shit. Oh, God. How long ago was this? Oh, less than a year. 10 months ago. So lots have changed.
About the late start, a few minutes ago I was trying to place a pizza order for 500 people to hand out to you, and the folks who are still out on the sidewalk who are processing as quickly as we can. There's still a few. But we wanted the security check to be thorough, and its thoroughness slowed us down a little bit, so our apologies for that. And I'm going to skip through some of my usual preliminaries to save a little bit of time. Very, very briefly, what I want you to know about our program, Open to Debate. Some of you are regulars from the time when we were very frequently on New York City stages before the pandemic, when we had a different name, but now we're called Open to Debate, and we've been around since 2008, and our goal is to prove and demonstrate that civil discourse can happen between people who are arguing with one another, and we appreciate all of you who came out and are willing to participate in that. Our program ultimately will be heard on public radio stations across the United States. We are live streaming now to anywhere in the world who is tuning in. I understand several thousand people are watching. And we're also available on our YouTube channel and on our own website, opentodebate.org. I have a request for all of you in the audience. I do like the fact that the audience that ultimately hears this debate knows that you are here, and so I want to let you know that we are perfectly comfortable with you applauding things that you hear that you like, to keep it positive, and it also tells the debaters how they're doing. The reverse, however, is not true. We're asking, our ground rules are no booing and hissing and heckling the debaters. It doesn't send the kind of message that we want to send. And of course, you'll probably hear somebody say something you don't like tonight. What's the big surprise in that? It's a debate. That's going to happen. So you don't need to be shocked by that. But we appreciate your participation in the spirit that we're trying to prove can really work in the cultural discourse. So, if you hear something you don't like, a sardonic snicker, perhaps, or a skeptical chuckle, something like that. But by and large, we really want to keep it positive. If you can't follow that ground rule, we would ask you to leave, and if we have to, we would assist you in leaving, but I'm really understanding that it's not going to come to that. And one other thing, filming of the picture or sound of tonight's debate is also against our rules. I want to now welcome to the stage two people who are critical to making Open to Debate happen, Leah Mathau and Clea Connor, our CEO and Chief of Content. I want to introduce them, and it's my pleasure to introduce them because
Good to hear, Elron.
we have grown so much, particularly in the last few years, and it's really a spectacular thing for us to be back on a stage in New York City, which was very much in our DNA. And I want to talk a little bit about this debate and start with you, Leah, but to introduce you. Behind the scenes, such a powerful part of the team as our Chief Content Officer. You have been curating important conversations like this one for years, from initial conceptualization to finding the people who are going to debate to very, very importantly, figuring out what the debate language in question is going to be and getting the wording right so that there's a respectful dichotomy happening. And I don't think people understand what an amazing 3D chess game it is to put a debate together, and how much it matters that you personally have been doing this with such, ethics and such a reputation for honesty and just mastering the art of what debate is about. So just for a little bit of we know how rare it is in our currently hyper-polarized culture for opposing viewpoints to be heard spoken aloud and in competition with each other under the same roof. But that is the essence of debate, and that is the value that we promote at Open to Debate. And so it is an honor to be here at New York's venerable Adler Hall, a crown jewel of the New York Society for Ethical Culture, where we cannot and we will not forget how the war in Gaza is steeped in pain and outrage and fear and anger. It's why this debate matters, and it's why it is natural to take sides, even necessary to take sides. But listening to the other side, which these debaters will be called to do with one another, and which I hope you will do as members of the audience just by being here, that may be a first step, at least in understanding how and why and exactly why we disagree. The question we have framed for this purpose, and that we will hear debated tonight, is this: were Israel's actions in the war in Gaza justified? So let's meet our debaters. I'm going to come back to the center. And again, as they enter the stage, I appreciate applause for each of them. Let's meet our debaters. Answering yes to the question, were Israel's actions in the Gaza war justified? I want to welcome Ilan Levy. Thank you. Ilan, you are the, you can stay with me here. You're the former spokesperson for Israel in the October 7th war, co-founder of the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office, host of the State of a Nation podcast. Welcome to Open to Debate.
I Again, help as always.
And here to argue no to the question, were Israel's actions in the Gaza war justified, I want to welcome Mehdi Hassan.
Hi, Mehdi. Fuck off, Ilon.
Mehdi, you are founder, editor-in-chief, and CEO of Zeteo, host of Al Jazeera's Head to Head, an award-winning journalist. Welcome to Open to Debate.
Thank you for having me.
And gentlemen, thanks each of you for being here tonight. Let's start it with a handshake, and then we can begin the debate.
Glad to take this offline.
Thank you.
So let's get to our opening statements. We want each of you to take a few minutes to explain why you're answering yes or no to our question, were Israel's actions in the Gaza war justified? And when I say were, I just want to be clear, we chose that word to talk about Israel's immediate actions after what happened on October 7th up through today. It's everything. It's not this moment, it's not that moment, it's the course of things. Ilan, you are up first. Your answer to the question is yes. The floor is yours. Please tell us why.
On October 7th, Hamas perpetrated an act of genocide against the people of Israel. Its death squads invaded with a clear mission: to massacre as many people as they could, as sadistically as they could, and to take survivors as hostages. Hamas had a strategy to lure Israel into an urban war and generate enough suffering that the world would pressure Israel to leave Hamas alone to do it again and again. Hamas slaughtered 1,200 people on that day at a music festival and in their beds. They cremated little children alive. They perpetrated barbaric acts of sexual violence. They beheaded, tortured, and mutilated their victims alive and dead, and they did it with glee. And then they took over 250 hostages, including little children, paraded them through the streets of Gaza to jeering crowds, hid them in tunnels and homes where they are being starved and tortured and raped and executed. It was the deadliest terror attack in world history after 9/11, the bloodiest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, and the opening shot of the Iranian regime's regional war against Israel on 7 fronts. At this point, Israel faced a choice, as Hamas immediately threatened to do it again and again until Israel was destroyed. To do nothing, or to do something. Both would have consequences. Doing nothing meant letting Hamas get away with October 7th, leave it free to do it again and again, only this time with thousands of dangerous terrorists released from jail and with its popularity skyrocketing. That's not an option. Doing something meant targeting Hamas's terrorists in accordance with international law in order to dismantle their ability to wage war and live out that threat to do it again and again. That was the choice that Israel faced.
No problem, Elron. You look after yourself and look after your lovely mum. Say hello to her for me. I will see you later. Stay based. I keep on forgetting this dude's name. Does his name matter? I'm sure it matters to his family, of course. And possibly to his organisation.
after October 7th. Now, after October 7th, that campaign to bring Hamas down and bring the hostages home was the only moral response. Hamas exists for the sake of war, and for the sake of peace, it must go. Let me explain Israel's strategy. Israel's strategy is to get civilians out of harm's way so that it can target Hamas's terrorist infrastructure under their feet. Hamas's strategy is to keep civilians in harm's way so that it can use them to shield their military infrastructure. Israel left Gaza in 2005 and never wanted to go back, but Hamas seized power 2 years later, started firing rockets at our cities, and rigged Gaza's urban landscape for war.
You're still
They
an
dug
occupying
a network of military
force!
tunnels 1.5 times longer than New York subway under homes and schools and hospitals. They booby-trapped tens of thousands of buildings. They started firing rockets at our homes and our towns from inside their schools and their hospitals. In response, Israel's actions are to target Hamas's terrorists and to take unprecedented efforts to keep their civilians safe from their own leader's sick strategy to sacrifice them on the altar of jihad. That's why it keeps repeatedly urging them to get out of harm's way from Hamas strongholds and flooding the area with over 1 million tons of aid. Because
And you're
it
not
keeps
doing the
saying
same
this is
for
a war
Zionism?
against Hamas, not the people of Gaza. Now, the suffering of my neighbors in Gaza is horrific. I blame their psychopath leaders for launching this war, fighting it inside civilian areas, and refusing
Your
to
leaders are
release the
psychopaths
hostages
as well.
and surrender. Now, tonight's debate is about whether Israel's actions in the war in Gaza are justified. In a context in which I hope we can all agree, none of the enemy's actions are justified.
No.
Because we are fighting a jihadist army that has as much respect for humanity and law as Mehdi Hassan has for the truth. Mehdi may say, I condemn Hamas's acts on October 7th, but he will not condemn its strategy, because he
Dickhead!
is part of its strategy. Hamas is counting on its defense attorney to shield it from the consequences of the war that it started and deflect blame onto Israel so it can do October 7th again, maybe because they share a goal that Israel shouldn't exist. Mehdi Hassan will say tonight that October 7th does not justify Israel's actions in this horrible war. My question then is this. What
Ilan,
does
I'm sorry,
October 7th
your time is
justify?
up.
What does October 7th?
I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you. Mehdi?
Thank you.
Ilan,
You got that bastard
in
to shut
already
up.
calling your opponent a liar, you have already crossed one of the lines of the culture that we try to establish here. I wish you hadn't. I don't mind. It's fine.
Oh, I'll actually put on my actual filter. Hold on. Be right back. I will be back. Yeah, that's working.
It's fine. It's fine.
You don't need to do that to make your case, please. Mehdi Hasan, you are answering no in answer to the question: were Israel's actions in the Gaza war justified?
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, the question: were they justified? Were the actions justified?
And it would be great if you didn't feel the need to respond to the personal attack. And it'll waste
We'll decide when we get there, John. Were they justified? No, obviously not. Of course not. October the 7th, I think we can all agree, was a crime, a war crime, right? We can all agree on that. And taking hostages is a war crime. And those hostages should be released. But to destroy an entire place and entire people in response is never justified. Never justified. How are we still I don't understand how we're debating this more than 40,000 deaths later. I don't understand how we're still debating this sitting in the comfort of New York, 7,000 miles away from a place that the UN Secretary General has called hell on earth. Justified? Justified? Was Israel justified in carrying out one of the most intense civilian punishment campaigns in history, according to Dr. Robert Pape at the University of Chicago, dropping 500-pound bombs, 1,000-pound bombs, 2,000-pound bombs on schools, hospitals, universities, bookstores, libraries, mosques, churches, refugee camps, apartment buildings, cemeteries, destroying a higher percentage of buildings in northern Gaza than the Allies destroyed in Dresden during World War II, reducing Gaza to 42 million tons of rubble while they got people out of the way? How is that justified? Dropping a bomb, for example, on a 6-story apartment building in central Gaza last October, killing more than 100 people inside, including more than 50 children, with no Hamas target in sight, according to Human Rights Watch, with no explanation offered by the Israeli military. Even till today, was that justified, Elon? Was Israel justified in telling people to go to safe zones and then bombing them and killing them in those safe zones? According to NBC, there were 7 deadly airstrikes between January and April in areas that the Israeli military had specifically designated as safe zones, killing Palestinian civilians like Sabrine Sakani, who was 30 weeks pregnant at the time. She was killed in a safe zone in April. Her little baby, newborn baby, died less than a week later. Was that justified too, Elon? Was Israel justified in killing a record number of kids in Gaza, 16,000 children, turning Gaza into what the UN has called a graveyard for children, according to Save the Children, killing more kids in the first 3 weeks that were killed globally in each of the past 4 years, killing little kids like 6-year-old Hind Rajab and her 15-year-old sister Leanne, firing 335 bullets into the car they were in. 335 bullets. And then killing the 2 paramedics who went to try and rescue them. Was that justified too, Elon? Was Israel justified in killing a record number of aid workers in Gaza? Right? A record number. Targeting again and again, systematically, car by car, according to Chef Jose Andres. A specifically, explicitly marked World Central Kitchen aid convoy killing 7 aid workers in the process. Was that justified? Was Israel justified in starving the people of Gaza using food and water as a weapon of war, to quote both the EU and Oxfam? Was Israel justified in blocking aid trucks from going into Gaza simply because they carry things like crutches, nail clippers, and even chocolate croissants, according to the Washington Post? Was Israel justified in raping, sodomizing Palestinian detainees who were charged with no crimes whatsoever? Putting hot rods up their rectums, amputating their limbs, according to CNN and the New York Times. Was that rape and torture justified, Elon? Israel, according to the ICC chief prosecutor, who put out a statement calling for the arrest of Elon's former boss, Benjamin Netanyahu, said that Israel may have military goals, legitimate goals, but the way they're carried out, killing innocent people, starving people, is criminal, he said. Criminal, think about that. Elon Levy is a former spokesperson for a man who the ICC chief prosecutor once arrested for war crimes. Elon himself has produced a number of lies, sorry John,
Carry on,
in
Jim.
service of those war crimes. He has a bunch of tweets still up tonight which say that babies were beheaded on October the 7th, babies were baked in ovens, babies were ripped from their mothers' wombs. October the 7th was bad enough, but Elon had to exaggerate it for atrocity purposes. Those tweets are still up. Why would you trust anything this man says to you tonight? Look, he's here. He's here to gaslight you, to defend the indefensible, to excuse the inexcusable, to justify the unjustifiable, but you don't need to. Tonight you can choose to be on the side not of cruelty, not of criminality, but on the side of the innocent people of Gaza who are being killed as we speak tonight, as we speak, by Elon's former colleagues in the Israeli military on the orders of Elon's former bosses in the Israeli government. So yes, I choose to oppose this horrific and homicidal motion. Thank you.
So we're going to have a discussion with that's a little bit looser in format. But the first thing I want to say to each of you is, this mutual urination contest is not helping us understand the principles involved. All right, you think he tells untruths, you think he tells untruths. You don't need to keep hitting that point, I hope, to make your argument. And again, it's not what we're about.
Correct.
I heard you in your opening statement say that the only moral response was for Israel to try to take Hamas down and to get the hostages home. I heard your opponent say that the manner in which it's happening is just enormous overreach with enormous consequences for an enormous number of people that he would certainly say, and I think a number of others would agree, are innocent people, not all of them, but some of them, and that represents an unjustifiable response. What we're talking about, it seems like, is proportionality. And I want you to address the issue of proportionality. This has been calculated in a number of ways. People have said that, as you said, it was the worst terrorist attack since September 11, 2001. But others would say that the number of people killed on both sides is wildly out of balance and therefore disproportionate. There's an issue to be discussed here. There's a principle to be discussed here, and that's proportionality. And what, in your view, justifies the proportionality that Israel has stepped up to in its response? And again, because I want things to move back and forth, I'll probably jump in on you after about 90 seconds, just so you have a sense.
Israel's response is proportionate to the threat that we face, which is the threat of annihilation. After perpetrating the savage atrocities of October 7th, the first thing Hamas did was deny that it did them. The second thing that it did was to threaten to do it again and again until Israel is destroyed. That is what is at stake. If this war ends with Hamas free, emboldened and empowered to perpetrate more October 7th massacres, thinking that the world will keep saving it from the wars that it started. Now, proportionality is a term in international law. It doesn't mean that if they kill 1,000 people, you kill 1,000 people and call it quits. It means that for each strike, the anticipated collateral damage, the damage to civilians, cannot be excessive to the anticipated military goal.
And your argument is that has been the principle Israel has observed.
Every military expert who has observed Israel's military efforts, including just recently in the Times, the Deputy Supreme Commander of NATO, has said that Israel is fighting in the most complicated urban battlefield that the world has ever seen, and he's satisfied that its rules of engagement and standard procedures are at least as rigorous as the UK and other Western allies. That's the former Deputy Supreme Commander of NATO.
Mehdi.
So I actually want to agree.
You captured our government.
I want to agree with something Elon said. Proportionality is a difficult subject, and we shouldn't talk about this in abstract. X number here, Y number there. Let's talk specifics. The problem with a lot of spokespersons of Israel, they want to talk in abstract. I want to talk in specifics. So if we talk about proportionality, we talk about discrimination, we talk about war crimes. Last October, shortly after October 7th, Israeli forces struck a 3-story residential building in Gaza City. They killed 15 members of the Al-Dos family, 7 children. According to Amnesty International, the survivors say no warnings. Elon told us there were warnings. No warnings were given to evacuate. Amnesty found no evidence of any military targets in the area, and Israel to this day has offered no explanation for that strike. So for the dead Al-Dos family members, Elon, can you tell us why they were killed?
Mr. Hassan, the IDF does not owe you immediate answers, and the fact that Amnesty speaks to local witnesses intimidated by Hamas does not mean that there was not a military target.
But was there? Because Israel has never said there was a military target.
Hamas booby-trapped 40% of Gaza's buildings. It dug tunnels underneath homes and schools.
We're back to generalities, Elon.
No.
Why did you kill 15 members of the Al-Dos family?
I do not need to explain
you
every
do.
single strike.
You do. That's
Mehdi,
no, Mr. Hassan.
Elon. Debunked now. You're telling porky pies. And the furtherance of your Zionist beliefs. I'm not going to stand for it. Please debate me. I will borrow all of my analysis from people who are actually speaking out about this from many different corners. You're a Zionist. We know this. That much has been evident to myself. And as much as I care to say, my world outlook. I am here to counter you.
Because in this war, Israel is seeking to neutralize the threat of a terrorist army that has a deliberate strategy.
I'm going to
of
have to get the mic cut
sacrificing
switched,
innocent
please.
civilians.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Hamas has a deliberate strategy of sacrificing its innocent civilians, and this is a strategy that you are enabling by always deflecting blame onto Israel instead of considering the real question of why Hamas built its military assets into civilian areas. Under international law, Israel is obligated to give precaution where those feasible precautions are possible.
Okay,
and it has done that by
let Mehdi come in, please.
urging
I need to say two things. To be clear. To be clear.
Oh, God. I thought I would be able to get through a little bit more of this. I can't stand the bastard. I can't. Mehdi. My UK friend. I love what you say. I do. You are a bit of a liberal. But I'll give you some time. Let's check what's in my watch later. Ooh, demo. Oh, too apt. I'm wearing a demo t-shirt. Watch later. Oh no.
Right, so there was a time when we spoke about charities that we thought of bodies that were supposed to feed the hungry and defend the persecuted, look out for the most vulnerable in our society. These days, certainly in the last 10 years or so, it's all become a little bit darker. The rise of supposed charities that can help crush a protest or smear Palestinian voices, protect apartheid and still enjoy the tax breaks whilst doing it, such as the advantage of charitable status, of course. Britain became home to the likes of UK Lawyers for Israel and the campaign against anti-Semitism, where censorship came wearing a legal wig and political warfare to protect Israel got a gift aid receipt. But as much fun as it is to mock such entities, that's not to play these groups down, because they are incredibly dangerous, and yet they're now having a taste of their own medicine, perhaps. Their masquerade may finally be cracking. You see, global civil liberties group Cage International have just published a 66-page report, Britain's Apartheid Apologists, a forensic and fearless complaint in essence, that has now triggered a formal investigation into UK LFI's charitable status. So the days of ideological lawfare hiding behind benevolence may be numbered. The story is more than just a charity investigation, though. It's about whether British law protects those who expose war crimes or those who try to silence them instead. And it's about whether charity still means public good or has become a fig leaf for apartheid apologetics and anti-democratic repression. There are charities, it seems, who are very much less than charitable, shall we say. Right, so the word charity in Britain these days has become a bit of a battlefield. Too many charities don't feel very charitable and certainly don't seem that way in their actions. At a time when Gaza lies in ruins, when Israeli policy has been condemned as apartheid by the likes of Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International and UN Special Rapporteurs, plausibly found to be genocidal at the ICJ, how have some of the most aggressive defenders of Israel's human rights abuses managed to shield themselves behind the legal protection of charitable status? Well, it's a story that might finally get an answer. It's being asked. It's a question that's being asked as the UK Charity Commission have formally launched an investigation into the UK Lawyers for Israel Charitable Trust, the charitable arm of UK LFI, following a detailed legal complaint from Cage International. Alongside UK LFI, Cage's report also targeted the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, the CAA, exposing both organisations as Britain's apartheid apologists, according to the title of this document. Entities that, according to Cage, use their charitable status not to serve public good, but to shield Israeli war crimes and silence pro-Palestinian advocacy and advance a foreign government's interests with legal impunity. The implications are enormous. Cage's complaint does more than just name and shame. It challenges the legitimacy of two registered charities, accuses them of lawfare and ideological repression, and exposes a deeper regulatory crisis in Britain's charity sector, where Muslim, Palestinian and anti-Zionist voices are over-policed, while ideological enforcers for Israel appear to operate unchecked. So to understand the significance of the complaint, let's start with who these three organisations involved are. Cage International, formed in 2003, originally as Cage Prisoners, formed to campaign for prisoners of the War on Terror, George Bush, Guantanamo Bay, all of that. But it is now a broader civil liberties organisation focused on exposing structural Islamophobia and the abuse of counter-terrorism and charity law against Muslim communities. Their legal work is grounded in international human rights norms, with a growing emphasis on Palestine solidarity as a space where repression overlaps with anti-Muslim bias that they've always fought. UK Lawyers for Israel, despite the benign name, is not a neutral legal body at all. Founded in late 2010, it operates as a partisan legal advocacy group that defends Israeli government policies under the guise of legal education and engagement. Its charitable arm, now under investigation, is alleged to have supported campaigns to suppress criticism of Israel through strategic litigation, regulatory pressure and lobbying, thereby aligning itself with the foreign policy objectives of the Israeli state. The Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, meanwhile, presents itself as a civil society watchdog opposing anti-Semitism. Founded in 2014, just after Israel's assault on Gaza in August of that year, great timing guys, it's become best known for aggressively promoting the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IRA, definition of anti-Semitism, which equates some forms of criticism of Israel with anti-Jewish hatred. The critics argue that the CAA functions less as a neutral rights organisation and more as a political enforcer, targeting artists and academics and teachers and politicians, anybody, frankly, who expresses solidarity with Palestinians. UK charity law, as established in the Charities Act 2011, lays out clear obligations for charities, though. Charities must serve exclusively charitable purposes, provide measurable public benefit, remain politically neutral except where advocacy directly supports charitable aims, and avoid causing harm or discrimination. The NCVO, the National Council for Voluntary Organisations, echoes these principles, stating that charities must not engage in political activity that is not incidental or connected to their legal objectives.
Rejoice, comrades! Gemma is here. Hi, story girl. I am well adjacent. How you doing, darling? I demand you all go follow Story Girl. Great to see you, darling. As always. I am wearing Demo Rants. I bought this in support of Demo. Yeah. It is a day ending in Y, as always. Or why? Why anything?
UK LFI and CAA have, as the Cage Report and multiple media investigations allege, engaged in practices that push the boundaries of charity law. UK LFI's initiated legal complaints against NHS partnerships with groups like Medical Aid for Palestinians, submitted regulatory pressure on universities hosting events related to Palestine, and challenged the funding of charities that advocate for Palestinian rights. While not always successful, these actions reflect a strategy of using legal instruments to advance highly partisan political objectives under the cover of charitable activity. UK LFI has launched legal complaints to prevent NHS partnerships with groups like Medical Aid for Palestinians, lobbied universities to cancel educational events related to Palestine, tried to defund charities that advocate for Palestinian rights. They're not actions that serve public education, they're ideological campaigns aligned with Israeli state interests, operating through the mechanisms of lawfare. The CAA is similarly allegedly overstepped its bounds, though high-profile campaigns against political figures such as Jeremy Corbyn, extensive promotion of the IRA definition, the organisation has contributed to an environment in which criticism of Israeli state policy is frequently reframed as anti-Semitic. This is not neutral anti-racism advocacy, it is ideological suppression. Moreover, such behaviour clearly breaches the requirement to provide public benefit without causing harm or engaging in politically partisan behaviour. In fact, Cage made a very salient point regarding the IRA definition, which is well worth highlighting. Contrary to the examples of what the IRA definition considers to be anti-Semitic posts in relation to Israel, Chamberlain clarifies that those examples existed within a certain context, albeit highly contested, but in other contexts could not be relied on. What the judgment clarifies is that Article 10 of the Human Rights Act of 1998 protects the following speech and cannot be considered inherently anti-Semitic. Calling for the abolition of Israel and its replacement with a unitary state comprising Jewish and Palestinian citizens, highlighting the ethnic cleansing of the Nakba upon which Israel was constructed, claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavour, describing Israel as an apartheid one, comparing Israel with Nazi Germany even if incendiary and especially hurtful, unless used as a racialised taunt. Rather interesting, given a lot of what we see on social media, isn't it? The concept of lawfare, central to Cage's report, describes the deliberate misuse of legal systems to undermine human rights, silence dissent, and enforce political conformity. UK LFI and CAA have both deployed lawfare to devastating effect. By weaponising complaints and exploiting institutional fear of reputational damage, they've effectively silenced debate. These tactics have had real-world consequences. For instance, UK LFI submitted a freedom of information request and lobbied NHS trusts in an attempt to pressure them into severing ties with Medical Aid for Palestinians, as aforementioned, raising alarmist claims about extremism. And whilst these attempts have not been confirmed as successful in achieving their goals, they reflect a broader strategy of regulatory harassment and reputational damage using false claims of extremism. Meanwhile, Palestine solidarity events at British universities have been targeted too. One striking example occurred at the University of Essex in 2017 when UK LFI sent a legal warning to university officials suggesting that a planned panel discussion featuring Palestinian academics could breach anti-terror laws, violating the prevent duty, as they had put it. And while the university ultimately allowed the event to proceed after review, the intervention created a chilling effect and exemplified how legal intimidation can deter institutions from engaging with Palestinian perspectives. CAA's lawfare tactics have contributed to a climate where criticism of Israeli policy is frequently framed as anti-Semitic. Its promotion of the IRA definition, how they choose to interpret it, and public campaigning has helped normalise the conflation of political dissent with hate speech. This contributes to a broader culture of caution and suppression within public institutions. There have been wider concerns that the politicised application of the IRA definition has led to disproportionate scrutiny of educational discussions around Palestine. The Charity Commission's current investigation into UK LFI
Please, Jim, I beg of you, as a... technically I still smoke cigarettes. Don't do it. This is a crutch. And anyway, cigarettes are far too expensive. I do still technically have a cigar sitting in the back. I can see the back. It's sitting over there. I have that stuff as well. It is in here. I love my jewellery box. That's where I put my roll-ups in. The rest of it is somewhere else that I'll never show. Don't worry, technically, I don't get access to it anymore.
arrives after years in which
Back
equally
to Damon.
contentious alleged misconduct from Muslim-led charities was met not with leniency at all, but with institutional overreach instead. Interpal, for example, endured 3 separate Charity Commission inquiries in 1996, 2003 and 2006 through to 2009, all ending in clearance, but they still lost bank access and reputation. Similarly, Islamic Relief was subjected to smear campaigns linking to the state influence and bank de-risking, later vindicated by an audit. And Cage itself, actually, while ultimately cleared as well, saw major funding withdrawn amid regulatory pressure. The disproportionate scrutiny of these Muslim charities, despite repeated exoneration, stands in stark contrast to the delayed action against UK LFI. This two-tier approach reinforces what Cage calls institutional Islamophobia, the view that Muslim-led civil society
Correct.
is inherently suspect, while Zionist-led repression is institutionally protected. CAA's own history with the Charity Commission further exposes this double standard. A complaint submitted in 2019 by Jewish Voice for Labour regarding CAA's overtly political campaigning was dismissed in 2024 after a prolonged and toothless inquiry. Meanwhile, CAA continued to publish highly politicised statements such as condemning UK government policy on arms exports to Israel that critics argue crossed the boundary of political advocacy and should have triggered regulatory scrutiny. The regulator's silence on these violations, or alleged violations, undermines the credibility of charity law and public confidence in oversight. But perhaps the most damning charge in Cage's report is that both UK LFI and CAA are complicit in defending apartheid, ethnic cleansing and genocide. Now, this is not rhetorical hyperbole, it reflects mounting international legal consensus. The International Court of Justice's 2024 advisory opinion labelled Israel's occupation regime a system of racial segregation and apartheid, in breach of Article 3 of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. Bodies such as UN experts, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, Israeli NGOs themselves like B'Tselem have all articulated similar findings. UK LFI is documented as actively undermining these legal frameworks, including efforts to delegitimise the work of UN special rapporteurs such as Francesca Albanese, and to challenge the International Criminal Court's authority over Israeli war crimes. Similarly, the CAA routinely portrays references to apartheid or genocide as anti-Semitic slander, thereby conflating legitimate legal criticism with hate speech and chilling discourse around Israel's human rights violations. The cumulative effect of UK LFI and CAA's actions has been to contribute to an erosion of civil liberties in areas related to Palestinian advocacy. While direct causality is difficult to prove in specific cases, cultural organisations have reportedly avoided programming on Palestine due to fear of reputational damage or legal reprisal. Student societies have also described increased self-censorship. These developments reflect the chilling effect of lawfare-driven intimidation, even where no formal sanctions have occurred. The right to support Palestinian self-determination, oppose Israeli apartheid, or engage in boycott activism is increasingly under attack. Cultural organisations avoid programming on Palestine. Look at the BBC as a classic example of that, and the programming that they've refused to show. Students face disciplinary hearings. Academics and cultural figures have faced heightened scrutiny when addressing issues related to Palestine. Although claims of blacklisting or formal disciplinary act
I'll get back to you in a minute, Demo. Don't take barbiturates with alcohol. How did you feel? I know the physical effects of what barbiturates and alcohol do. On a solitary basis, really, they separate the both of them, but putting them two together, his liver got fried, by the way. Oh, Jim. At least you're here now. And if you ever need to talk things out, I know some about it. If that's a way for you to help, to get through it, I get that. A lot of Scots do it. A close family member gets put through the ring. Laughter's the best medicine. Don't get me wrong, I've probably got psychological issues to deal with. I know I do. Having everyone around me does help me, oddly enough. Thank you.
actions require careful substantiation, the broader atmosphere has discouraged many from engaging with the topic publicly. This culture of fear is deliberate. UK LFI and CAA are part of that. They do not merely respond to alleged instances of hate speech, they seek to proactively deter expression as well. This chilling effect corrodes not only public discourse, but the very foundation of democratic participation. It is particularly galling that Jewish anti-Zionist voices, such as those from Independent Jewish Voices or Jewish Voice for Labour, are also excluded. They are silenced not despite their Jewish identity, but because their dissent undermines the manufactured consensus that equates Judaism with Zionism. This erasure of internal dissent within the Jewish community is a hallmark of ideological enforcement, not anti-racism at all. Cage's report calls for decisive action. UK LFI and CAA must be deregistered unless they can prove full compliance with charity law, including the public benefit test and neutrality requirements. The Charity Commission should commission an independent review of its own practices, particularly its record of bias against Muslim charities. Legal reforms are needed to prohibit any charity from aligning with the interests of a foreign government known to be engaged in crimes against humanity. There must also be formal protection for political expression, including support for Palestinian liberation within educational and charitable spaces. Furthermore, the adoption of the IRA definition should be reversed. It is a politically compromised tool used to police dissent, not to protect Jews from racism. We need something better. It must be replaced by a definition that distinguishes between anti-Semitism and legitimate political criticism, and in no way can be conflating of the two. Charities defending apartheid, wherever it occurs, whoever they are, must be treated as violations of public trust. That includes pro-Israel groups operating in Britain under the guise of neutrality. The investigation into UK LFI and the case made against CAA as laid out by Cage must be seen as more than isolated complaints. They are a window into a deeper crisis, a legal and regulatory system that protects power over justice, censorship over freedom, and apartheid over equality. Cage's complaint has exposed the structural enablers of repression and challenged the ideological masquerade of charitable lawfare. The Charity Commission has a choice before it, therefore. It can enforce the law equally. It can uphold the principles of charity that it is supposed to do. It can defend civil liberties. Or it can continue to legitimise lawfare, censorship, and complicity in international crimes. All of this, of course, is set against the backdrop of Starmer's pledge to recognise a Palestinian state right now, but only conditionally upon Israel doing what he wants them to do, by an arbitrary measure, by his own viewpoint, come September. Already there are signs he might be walking back on this pledge, or at least having the door opened for him to do so, once more as a result of lawfare. So check out that story here as your recommended next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't done so already, so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new daily content, sort of spreading the word and helping to support the channel at the same time, which is very much appreciated, holding power to account for ordinary working class people. I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.
Now, it's been a little while since I've done one of these case studies. Last year, as many of you will remember, I discussed Philip Ziba. Most of you have probably already seen that series. So needless to say, people seem to really enjoy them. And the worst part is I really enjoyed it as well. You see, after doing that first video, I got a taste for it. I've been here cooped up in this green room, slowly absorbing like arsenic from the walls, and it's been driving me insane. And then, sure enough, it happened. A few months ago, a new subject found his way to me. He manifested to me through the ether like the Green Goblin mask. And so, folks, it's finally time for a
Oh, dear God. I know what South African Jewish twins are talking about. Christ. Not good.
Another one. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce you to a brand new character in the Milo Cinematic Universe, the MCU. We're totally gonna get sued for that. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to part 1 of Shane Vibes Debunked.
Net zero. Net zero. Net zero. Net zero.
Net zero.
Net zero.
Net
zero.
Net zero madness.
You are being lied to about net zero, one of the biggest, most expensive ideas in human history. You are being lied to by politicians who are misrepresenting the facts while accepting huge money from private business. You are being lied to so rich men can get even richer.
Right. That is coming up on 3 hours. Let's go and see. If we can say hello to Raptor. Oh, Raptor's still going. Sweet. Huh? Back to chat. Thank you, Gemma. Much appreciated, my darling. Big hug for Gemma. Yeah, not
destroys
good,
the
is
fact
it?
that my ancestry, that
What version of it?
my great-great-grandmother or great-great-grandfather was sexually assaulted by a white slave owner, by someone who had power over them. I don't know which. It doesn't matter which. It mattered that it happened here in America or American colonies. I am a direct descendant from slaves. Personally, my family grew up in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Half my family grew up in the U.S. Virgin